Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our second live stream of the Utah Stories program. Thanks for joining me. We are talking today about truth. It seems like there's more definitions of words than ever before. You're not allowed to say on Twitter that a man is a man and a woman is a woman. You can get banned like the Babylon Bee did. And there's not a clear definition of truth anymore. There's my truth. There's other people's truth. But before we get into that, I want to show you these awesome, so that's what we're going to be talking about, but I want to show you these awesome photos of Mill Creek Canyon this morning. There's all this water, and we're going to talk a little bit about the mega drought. So the mega drought is real. We felt it last year. We could see the dry reservoirs. We could see what was happening. But look at all this water we have. It feels like we're out of the mega drought. I mean, it just totally feels that way. And on the program with me today is Jackie. How you doing today, Jackie?
Hello, I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me, Richard.
Thanks for joining us again. So, let's check out this water. This was this morning. I just took this on my phone this morning. Can you believe all this water coming down in Mill Creek? It totally feels like there's no drought. I mean, you look at the stream. I remember when there was no drought, and that's what the stream looked like. What do you think?
I really think that we don't have a drought.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it, does it?
No, there's definitely a drought, dude.
But it doesn't feel like we have a drought.
No, it doesn't feel like we have a drought at all. Everyone's just watering their grass everywhere. I mean, no one's collecting water from when it rains.
So are we having a drought or not?
Oh, no, it feels like we are totally out of the drought.
It feels like it.
Yeah.
So what are the facts, though? Should we look it up?
The fact is that I should go outside and collect some rainwater if there is a drought.
Yeah.
So I'm not collecting rainwater. There's no drought.
Okay. So it doesn't feel like there's a drought. But if you look at the drought monitor, the U.S. drought monitor, I'm showing that on my page now, there is a drought. So here we have a color-coded diagram showing that we are indeed in a drought. Now do you believe there's a drought going on, Jackie?
I might be convinced.
You might be convinced?
I might be convinced.
Okay. So according to this, we are still in severe drought for much of Utah and extreme drought in all of western Utah. But it's just very weird because the way I feel about it as opposed to the facts don't seem to, quite match up. And if you look at the way the reservoirs actually look, Pine View is still only at about 54%. These reservoirs, I think it's Causey and Woodruff. I'd never even heard that reservoir. 100%. So despite your feelings, actually there is a drought. It looks like there is. So,
okay, I think I'm pretty convinced we might, have different feelings versus our facts, We got to fact check our feelings.
yeah. So my point is, like, your feelings about things, while you can feel something, you can see it, it can be in your own little bubble. That doesn't mean it's the truth. There's a difference between the way you feel and the way you personally perceive things, your own personal truth, as opposed to the truth and the facts. And people have to be aware of that. Like, when you're speaking your truth, it isn't the truth. And I'm not so sure that a lot of kids graduating from college really comprehend that. I think a lot of kids are going into university and college, and they're now getting these professors who are indoctrinating them with their feelings. And I wanted to address that really quickly because this whole issue surrounding the 1619 project. Have you heard about this, Jackie? The 1619 project?
Honestly, no, I haven't.
It's a new teaching of history, and the teaching of history is that America was not really founded in 1776. It was founded in 1619 because the first slave colony to form in the Americas was in the Caribbean islands in 1619, and that's where the slave trade began. And so the idea is we should recognize that the United States was based upon building up its empire on the backs of slaves. And so the New York Times ran a giant project about the 1619 Project, and they published it. It did incredibly well. They sold a whole bunch of books. They ran a follow-up in the New York Times Magazine. But here's the problem. The woman who wrote the 1619 Project, Nicole Hannah Jones, she knew what her feelings were, and that was that America is racist. America was built upon slavery. America, her strongest feeling was America fought the Revolutionary War to preserve slavery. But are those the actual facts? And the problem is they weren't. Those were her feelings, but they weren't the facts. America's Revolutionary War was not fought to preserve slavery. And so this is from Politico. Politico magazine is left-leaning. It's not right-leaning. This is written by a guy, actually, I don't know if it's a man or a woman. Leslie, could go either way. Leslie M. Harris, who warned the New York Times that they're about to publish something that's not based on facts. They're about to publish the 1619 Project, and the major factual error is that the Revolutionary War, where we gained our freedom and independence from Great Britain, was fought to preserve slavery. And this woman fact-checked the 1619 Project. She warned the New York Times, you are publishing this giant multi-part series in your paper that's not based upon the facts. The fact is, despite Nicole Hannah Jones' feelings that the Revolutionary War was fought for slavery, because all these greedy white people who wanted to found a country of capitalism based on slavery and build up a whole nation on the backs of slaves, her feeling that that's what the truth was, that feeling was not true. Times published it anyway, and they disregarded Leslie Harris's fact-checking. And so this goes back to our last episode. I think the facts of freedom of speech and the facts of speech being suppressed, it's one of the most important issues we face today as both citizens and consumers of media, because if we continue to accept that publications like the New York Times are just going to just start reporting personal, my truth. I'm speaking not maybe the truth, but I'm speaking my truth. And they say something is editorial when it's actually all opinion. That ruins our public discourse. And I started to talk about that before. Encourage people to go and read this article from Politico, because I want to read the beginning of it. In August 19 of last year, I listened in stunned silence as Nicole Hannah Jones, a reporter for the New York Times, repeated an idea that I had vigorously argued against with her fact checker, that the Patriots fought the American Revolution in large part to preserve slavery in North America. Hannah Jones and I were on Georgia Public Radio to discuss path-breaking New York Times 1619 Project, a major feature about the impact of slavery on American history, which she had spearheaded. The Times had just published the special 1619 edition of its magazine, which it took the name from the year 20 Africans arrived in the colony of Virginia. I misspoke, colony of Virginia, a group believed to be the first enslaved Africans to arrive in British North America. So the article goes on and explains that despite my advice, the Times published the incorrect statement about the American Revolution anyway. Now, why would they do that? Why would the New York Times, probably the most respected news outlet in all of America, maybe all of the world, publish an intentionally incorrect statement? Why wouldn't they not understand the ramifications of doing that? Because they knew they would sell more articles, more newspapers, more magazines. They would they wanted to start a revolution in the way we teach history in this country. They wanted to back a whole movement that is taught by not only Nicole Hannah-Jones, but a guy by the name of Ibram X. Kendi, which is we need to teach anti-racism. America was founded on racism. America was founded on slavery. America was inherently evil in its founding and inception, and now we need to correct all those past injustices. Now, that may sound conspiratorial, that's what they're doing, but now we see what's happening in Congress and the rhetoric that's going on, and the implications of not only America being founded in slavery, but policing is inherently racist, and we want to abolish the police in major cities. There's actually a woman in Congress, I didn't actually know much about her, named Cori Bush. She was on the Stephen Colbert program. She openly talks about all the time, despite the murder rates increasing in all major cities that have defunded police, she wants to abolish the police because the police represent the slavery upon which America was founded. And a lot of these people in the far left wing of the Democrat Party, known as the Squad, they want to abolish capitalism because capitalism is based on slavery. So these crazy radical ideas are being endorsed and sanctioned by the leading publication, newspaper in all of America. And so I just think this should be concerning. I think you should at least know that this is happening. So you had heard nothing about this from the news sources you examined, Jackie?
No. So I haven't exactly heard everything that's going on about it, but I do know that there are feelings put behind words in articles to make you feel almost saddened or burdened that it's something bad, even though it could be really good. So even basically what you were just speaking about is like the major news aren't really giving you the truth and the facts versus what's behind those facts is making you feel or see it in a different way.
Yeah, it's so much. There's so much agenda behind whatever they are presenting to you, and so I just think that there's a big culture war fight on how we teach history in this country, and I think if we left the left wing of its own devices, all of our history books would be taught about the terrible nature in which this country was founded upon slavery, and that is the major component to the United States of America. And the problem I have with that is they want to rip up the Constitution. They want to tear down all the statues of Thomas Jefferson. They want to tear down statues of even George Washington. It's unbelievable, for one thing, because, yeah, they had slaves, these men, but they wrote the Declaration of Independence. They fought, and they did everything they could to fight the Revolutionary War, and they put in the Constitution that all men are created equal. And Thomas Jefferson knew that one day America would not have slaves. He could not have written that statement into the Constitution if he had been inherently racist. There's no way. And then, of course, we fought the Civil War, and the northern states fought against the southern states, and it was white people fighting white people to free slaves. So if all these white people are so racist, why would have they been fighting to abolish slavery? Why would have Abraham Lincoln, as a white president, be fighting and putting the strength of the nation behind the Union Army to fight against slavery? And I just pose these basic, simple questions because I look at the history department of the University of Utah when I was there, and it was incredibly awesome. I had such an amazing professor in my honors history department named Ray Gunn, and kudos to him because I learned about the founding fathers. I learned about the founding principles of this country. And I learned that our freedom, especially the freedom of the press and free speech, is what elevated the United States on a platform which put us on a platform higher than any other nation that had ever existed at the time. To have free speech and to allow the press to speak freely about any leader that was that they considered to cause problems was completely unprecedented. That wasn't allowed anywhere else at the time. The amount of freedom that they gave people individually, and our individual freedoms granted to us by God, was completely unprecedented at the time. And if we let slavery become this overarching problem that basically created an evil empire and make that into our American history, of course, we are doomed. We are doomed that the next generations are going to completely destroy our foundations, and we won't have a free country anymore. I can't see anything else happening. Anyway, before I change subjects, do you have anything else to say on that, Jackie? All right. Well, I want to switch gears now, and I want to talk about something else that's really disturbing to me. I work with a lot of awesome ranchers, farmers. We're going to be working on our farm issue. This is an initiative in Oregon to ban animal slaughter and breeding. So Oregon, I looked up the numbers. They have about 500,000 cattle right now. They want to make themselves into a sanctuary state where you can no longer breed animals for food. And I'm really kind of bothered and scared by this initiative because we have a ton of cattle ranchers in Utah, and most of our rural economies are excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. Most of our rural economies in Utah are supported by cattle ranching. I'm sure that's the case too in Oregon. And to think that we're going to ban the breeding and slaughter of animals for food is insane. And they think they're going to turn it into a sanctuary state. Like, all the cows there can escape the abuse and neglect. Show me the abuse and neglect. Now, I'm not a fan of CAFOs, which is the common breeding practice, and confined animal feedlots. I think there's a much, much better way in grass-fed beef, pasture-raised beef. You leave the animals out to pasture all the time. But we as consumers have the ability to choose what product we want to buy. You can buy the factory farm beef, or you can buy the grass-fed beef. You, as a consumer, can choose what kind of product, what kind of animal, and how they were raised by the product you buy. The government shouldn't be coming in, passing a law that could destroy and obliterate the economies of states. And so Colorado has a similar measure. They want to pass, they call it animal cruelty. They're gathering signatures. They already have 1,200,000 signatures they'll need by next summer, and they're working to recruit volunteers for their effort. Unfortunately, I think a lot of young people are misinformed about the nature of cattle ranching. They think that cows emit so much methane, they consume so much water, they're destroying the ecology. Actually, the exact opposite is true. I'm sorry, we're going to have to take a little break, but I'll be back.